Brilliant. So thank you for coming online today, Hazel, to talk about this with me. We're doing this session together, as we said. So just as a little introduction for anyone that doesn't know me, my name's Clara Rose, and I work with solicitors to help them find the next step in their career, which means I obviously work with law firms and law departments as well, to help them find good people for their roles. Hazel.
So I'm Hazel. I run Empowering Your Circle, and I have worked in law quite a while ago. But I work with people in their careers and helping them find their own confidence levels and build themselves up enough so that they can have the promotions and things that they're looking for.
Excellent. And that's why we thought we would come together to do a promotion ready webinar, because really we both come at this from slightly different angles, but it makes sense that we can both add to the picture in terms of promotion and what firms are looking for.
Yeah.
So yes, so this was the fundamental thing that we started out from,
Yes,
wasn't it?
it was.
So yeah, doing the job well doesn't necessarily equal being seen as promotion ready. That's essentially the premise that we're starting from.
Yes, and we're going to take everyone through slightly different ways of thinking about how you can be a doer, but actually be more seen to be promotion ready in different ways. So
Excellent. So yeah, I think this is a great sort of starting point if you're watching this in terms of thinking, where are you at? How clear is your firm's roadmap for your next move? And I think obviously sort of 10 out of 10, you know exactly where you're going. It's all mapped out. It's clear, it's communicated, this step and the next step and how many steps it will take to get to where you want to go. 0 out of 10, I guess you haven't got a clue. Nobody said a thing to you. You're just working away, no idea of your progress or what's expected really, and then everything in the middle.
yeah, and sadly, I do think it's possibly not always 10 out of 10. It'd be nice to think everyone was facing a 10 out of 10. Here's what you need to do. But I get the feeling it's not close to 10 out of 10 for most companies.
I would think that the majority of people that I speak to are definitely coming in the middle of that range of 5 out of 10 or thereabouts, just based on experience from speaking to people in the market.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of for yourself to think about. So I was just going to start first with doing a little bit sort of from my point of view, from a recruitment point of view. And these are the things which firms actually look for. So this is the sort of things which I'm asked for all the time when we're looking definitely at partners, sometimes even senior associates, but people that they want to go on to the top level. So commerciality really, return on investment in terms of, do you make a good case on paper in terms of your figures? What do those figures look like? Do you understand those figures and why they're tracking them? Do you understand that it's about the revenue, it's about the potential growth, it's about making it all add up? I mean, the standard still that firms look for, that they start from, is sort of a third. So that the normal is sort of salary as a third of your billings, a third goes to the firm and the running of the firm, and a third goes to profit of the firm. And that's still the starting point in terms of commerciality of any role. And then, various things change from there according to area of law and all the rest of it. But it's understanding that you need to be commercially viable is what people are looking for. Then the business development side, it very much, instead of just servicing the client, instead of just doing the work that's in front of you, it's about winning the work. Now that, it might be going out there and finding new clients, speaking to new people and persuading them that they should move their legal requirement to you, or keep in their mind so that when they have a legal requirement, you're the person that they come to. But also I think it's about, winning new work from existing clients. You're not just speaking to clients about what you're doing for them, you're speaking to them about their plans and their future and their needs as they move forward, so you can see where you can be helpful within that. And it's a different mindset again, which I think is a lot of what we're talking about, rather than just sort of doing the work, servicing what needs to be done. You're forward planning, your future thinking, and you're looking to get more in. Managing and scaling a team, I think again, lots of people that I speak to, often at the senior associate level, they definitely can start to be involved in this sort of thing. If you are building people underneath you to deal with the work that you're drawing in, then in terms of leverage, that gives you such a strong position to then go to the partnership and say, look at what I'm doing, look at the lovely pool of people that I've built. We're all functioning great as a team, we're all servicing this work that's there, and we're adding something. And I think, as whether you are a senior associate or a partner or somewhere in the middle there, if you can show signs of doing that, you might even be more junior, but they've needed to take on an assistant for you because actually you've got so much work bubbling over. You need someone to support you, And again, I think anything signs like that just put you in a really strong position in terms of going to a firm. Um, and then, yes, the strategic alignment, sort of solving firm level problems. I mean, that can really be anything. But classic ones would be things in process, things in systems. You can see there's a better way to do something. You can see people struggling with, say, it could be an IT issue, could be keeping track on business development. It could be, there was one recently that sprung to mind. Oh, and I think it was a process, and they'd tried to gather precedents and put them all together, in a format that meant everyone could access them and things like this. And so if you're looking at things strategically and thinking there is a better way for this to be done, and you're starting to implement solutions or even suggest solutions, which may or may not be falling on deaf ears, but if you've got that vision in terms of how you're looking at it, I think it's a great thing, and it's something that firms really look for. Um, so yes, why strong lawyers get overlooked. I think this is probably the crux of all of it, really. It is the safe pair of hands. Sometimes you can just be very good at your job and you do an excellent job. Everyone trusts you, everyone believes in you, they know that they can give you a piece of work. You will do it perfectly. The client will be super happy, and then you will immediately go on to the next piece of work, and you can keep doing that, and you're billing really well. Say everybody's happy with you. You're sort of churning through the work, and that's great. But the flip side of that can mean that you've got that high output, but no one's really seeing you other than that. Everyone's relying on you, um, but nobody's really seeing you because you're just head down in your work, sort of chipping away at the coal face of work. Um, but you're not doing sort of anything else. You're not lifting your head up. You're not sort of interacting with the right people, and you're not being visible enough for people to really sort of see you or come to you. Um, so that's what we want to avoid. And I think, yes, this is the sort of thing that people say, do they have the commercial grit? I mean, I think that is exactly what people are looking for. Like they do need people to be technically strong. They actually need everyone to be technically strong. But they do need the extra thing that they're looking for, particularly for a partner, is someone that's got that commercial acumen and that commercial grit to go out there and sort of start making things happen, start shaking the tree and say making wheels turn and that kind of thing. So I think that is ultimately what people are looking for. Um, and then in terms of the current market, yes, I think, there's lots of things which come together to change the market all the time. The contracting equity, one of the things we've seen recently is that a lot of sole practitioner firms who were making up numbers of firms, there's been about 1,000 firms or more probably now who are sole practitioners who have disappeared. Well, of course, all of those sole practitioners may have gone on to be a larger firm, but now
Mm.
there's less enthusiasm for that setup because of risk factors, insurance premiums, all sorts of things. And also, as a corresponding change to the market, we've seen a massive rise in the fee share model of law firms. So I think a lot of people who are independently minded will go to a fee share model where they get the support, they get all the compliance issues and things like this dealt with, and they can concentrate on billing and earning 75, 80% of what they bill. So those two things have sort of changed the number of firms, I think, in the playing field. And also, you know, firms merge all the time. That's an ongoing factor, whether that's through private equity. I think we're seeing more of that coming in to merge firms, but also, you know, just the ongoing merging of firms. So potentially in terms of equity, there's less opportunities there. And I think it definitely has an impact on the market. Um, then the safe bet as well. At the end of the day, firms will always favour internal promotion for those really big roles. People that they know, people that they trust, people that they've seen do these things themselves are always going to be sort of front of the queue. If they can find someone internally, they're always going to. So I think, again, in terms of opportunities that are out there in the market, sometimes it can be limited to move over at that senior management leadership level because you're an unknown quantity and they've really got to test you on more than one front to check that you're right for them. Um, and then niching. Niching is something that we're seeing more and more, and we're seeing it from an ever earlier age, as it were, in terms of qualification. So newly qualifieds now, we're seeing much more newly qualifieds go into a real wide range of niches, things that maybe people would have developed into that niche further on in their career, but now firms are having people in that niche from sort of day one. But I do think having your mind on a niche is a good thing to do because it really helps set you up as an expert in one field. And I've seen anything that could be someone recently I spoke to who was a commercial property solicitor had recently been doing a lot of renewable energy projects. So, you know, in this day and age, renewable energy is a fantastic niche to have because there's a lot of it going on. It's something that's growth. It's something that's going to be, you know, current for the foreseeable. So, you know, commercial property lawyer, um, looks a bit more exciting, has a bit more to bring, has a bit more specialism, you know, in that area. I think it looks good. Equally, sort of types of clients. So I know someone that's a corporate commercial solicitor who generally has commercial clients, but they focus on recruitment agencies because they understand the market. They've got a number of people now who are recruiters on their books. And so, again, they get to know their market. And there's all sorts of things out there, litigators that go sort of from broad down to, you know, contentious probate or something like this. That's been a massive growth area in recent times. And again, I think if you can sort of within a firm forge your own niche, then I think that's really exciting for a firm, whether it's your firm or another firm that you might move to, because it's something that you know, it's something that nobody else has. You can hold yourself out in the market to people to say, you know, this is what I do and this is why I do it. And I think it's great to have that. Sorry, I'm just going to change the spotlight on this. So yeah, it's good to have that niche and you can take it with you sort of thing, and it's something that you can carry and it can be your own, and it's useful to a firm, and it's useful sort of to present your case, as it were, for ownership of something which you bring to partnership. So I think it's a really good thing to have. So then, Hazel, yes, over to you for the other
Oh,
sort of side of things.
okay, so I'm going to hopefully build on a lot of what you've just said, Clara, because I think there's a lot of reasons why people don't follow the things that you've suggested they need to do in a law firm, and it's a lot of it's to do with their confidence.
Mm.
So, yeah, have you got
Yeah,
access to the slides? Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So, in terms of, you know, we talked about strong lawyers and things like that. High performers get stuck when they are just doing, because it feels safe. As you said earlier, you know, you can be somebody who's not visible, but doing this most amazing job for a law firm, but you do it because it feels safe. It feels like this is my comfort zone. It's my little space where I know what I do. And sometimes that's okay for some people. Maybe they don't want promotion, but for those that want promotion, you have to start stepping out of your comfort zone and starting to feel like, yes, leadership can feel like a step too far. You have to manage people, you have to think about those sorts of things. But what you have to do is think, what skill sets do I need to help me get where I need to be? because sometimes the skill sets are not just what do I know as a lawyer and what makes me a good lawyer. It's the softer skills that sometimes you need to develop and understand and use to showcase your leadership, showcase that you can be a good leader and build a team around you. Because yes, you do need that for visibility, but what do you need to do to move from doing and kind of, this is my performance, you know, I do it really well, I'll just wait and see if somebody gives me something. You can't wait and see. You have to step into a realm where you think, I don't really know how to build a team, and it makes me feel exposed that I would have to go and learn something new that I don't really know, but I really want that promotion. So what do I do? Okay, ask your law firm, perhaps being really upfront and saying, look, I'm really keen on understanding how to be a lawyer that leads. So I might want to lead my team. Is there any way that you can help me do some training? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's proactive. If you sit behind and let performance try and win out, you're being reactive the entire time. And that isn't putting you in front of anybody who could see you as a potential senior associate or partner. But you have to put yourself out there. So if you feel like one of the steps that's making it a little bit too far is, how do I be a leader? How can I manage people? How can I build a team around me, for example? Then ask the question, could you send me on a course that will help me? Because it's already putting you in a different kind of level and limelight with your law firm, because they're like, oh, this person's really proactive. They're thinking differently. Maybe we need to keep an eye on that person, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
starting to show and have a bit of visibility, which you didn't have before you wanted to step into a different place outside of your comfort zone. So it's all right to do things and it feels safe. But if you want something more out of your career, you've got to develop a bit of confidence to step outside your comfort zone and stop with the wait and see and move forward. So,
Definitely. Definitely. No, that's great. Next one.
so and and this kind of comes along with this kind of visibility, which is what you were saying about earlier, Clara. You know, nobody's just going to hand you something. You have to be able to talk to people in a way that shows that you're not just an expert at what you do, which probably means you're very good at it. You probably worked your way up, you've learnt new things, you know where you are in terms of, you know, your clients that you work with, your execution is really good of things, you're very reliable, you complete your tasks, everything is really good around that little space. But that's all you're doing is doing, right? You're the
Mm.
doer. Somebody can come to you and go, oh, thank you for doing this. Could you just do this for us as well? Because someone can rely on you to do it. That's okay if you want to stay in that space. But as you're watching this YouTube video, I'm assuming you don't want just the doing, you want to move to the next level. So, what's that trusted next level look like? Well, Clara, you mentioned it was well about strategically putting yourself where you need to be and thinking differently
Mm.
about things and the commercial impact. But for some people, those three things, strategic thinking, having an influence, and commercial impact, are really tricky to do because there's a lack of confidence. And
Mm.
I would say something like imposter syndrome comes in. So, you know, and I know that's possibly an overused word,
Mm.
but I know that there's a lot of people inside legal and outside of legal that feel like, oh, I can't possibly be a senior associate. You know, I can't step up into that. I don't have the experience. I don't have this. I don't have that. Everybody has the knowledge. Everybody can build a skill set.
Mm.
It's about like moving your self-doubt into self-belief. And that is by getting the skill sets that you need, talking to people and saying, how can I move to that level? Like, for
Mm.
example, if your firm doesn't have a 10 out of 10, this is our roadmap, then go and ask somebody, what's our roadmap?
Mm.
Like, be
Mm.
visible by asking questions.
Absolutely. And I think as well, the key thing there is that, as you say, these are skills that can be learnt, that can be taught, that you haven't been taught yet. And
Yeah.
that's fine because you've been taught how to be an excellent lawyer. And that's why you're an excellent lawyer. But these are now skills to build on top. And that's absolutely fine. And everyone expects that. You're not magically born with this extra skill set of how to lead, manage, business develop, all the rest of it. So I think
Yeah.
it's,
And there's skill sets that are going to stay with you for life. Like, you're not going to lose
yeah,
them. They're going to,
Mm,
you will keep building on them. The more you keep learning from other people, learning from partners ahead of you, look at somebody who's a partner ahead of you and think, oh, I love what they do. I really would like that. They're niching, they're doing these things. That sounds like something I'd be really interested in. Go and ask somebody if they'd be happy to mentor you. That's the other thing. Like, don't sit in the background, move yourself up, find ways of people noticing you. So, yeah, so being an expert and a doer is okay if that's where you want to stay. But if you want to move upwards, you've got to find the elements you need to move upwards, which is what you covered initially, Clara, and you need to do it by just opening up, being more comfortable with being confident and having the right communication and saying I want to learn more. So,
no, that's fair enough.
and I think some of it, and I just use the word imagine communication, because I just think that's like the key of just about anything we do. But it's the language we use. If you're happy to sit there and go, I managed the file, I supported the transaction, it's like
Mm-mm.
you're not going to get anywhere, because what did you actually do? And if you're at a point where you, I don't know, maybe you're at the point where there's a new project this client wants to bring on board, they want you to help with. You need to be able to talk to your boss and maybe the client as well, and use language like, I strengthened client confidence by.
Mm-mm.
Start it with a lot of confidence in what you've achieved. Because a lot of the time, even though you may have managed the file, when you actually think of the effort you put in to what you did, your language will be more impactful. It doesn't have
Mm.
to just be I manage the file, because when you actually analyze your entire part of what you did in this particular client file, you probably find that you've done so much more. It's just
Mm.
you're limiting your beliefs and your thought processes instead of being more impactful.
Mm.
So try and think about not underselling what you do. Don't ever undersell what you're doing, because most of us can sit there throughout our lives and go, well, I was part of the project.
Mm.
I did this amount. I did like an hour's worth of work on the client project. Okay, but what was that hour? Like, sell that. Tell people what you did in that hour. Don't just keep back and just sort of think everyone else did everything and I didn't do anything. Have the
Mm.
confidence to communicate in a very impactful way. So instead of like
Absolutely.
underselling the contribution. Um,
I was just going to say we have had a question, which
yes.
we can discuss now. I'm happy to sort of just have any questions in the chat as we go along. So they say, in light of the rapid changes in the legal services market, what is the expected role of lawyers in the coming years? Have lawyers become a commercial commodity within law firms, or do they still represent an irreplaceable professional and intellectual value? I don't know what you think, but I mean, my initial thought is I mean, I was going to say yes, but there's too many questions in there. But yes, I think they are irreplaceable, and I think they do have an intellectual value. I think that the role of the lawyer changes all the time, and I think at the moment, I assume AI is one of the massive things that you're referring to. It is changing a lot, but I don't think it's changing everything in the same way that gosh, when I started doing legal training for law firms, we used to joke that the more senior you were in a law firm, the further you were away from a computer, because you wouldn't get a partner with a computer on their desk. That was unheard of. The secretaries had the computers on their
Yeah.
desk. And
Yes, I
now you
remember.
think, what? How would a law firm function without, what do you even do, without a computer on your desk? So, that changed everything. And that was years ago. And AI may well change everything, but it won't change the fact that you need very intellectually astute people dealing with very complex people-based problems, and coming up with solutions for them. So I think you're absolutely going to need people for that whole interface, because that's what people want when whatever lawyer you are, if you're a, I mean, family lawyer, conveyancing lawyer, doing commercial contracts, whatever it is, you may be doing another piece of work. You go, oh, I've got, 40 files and they're all divorces. Well, there are 40 people whose worlds are being turned upside down. And to
Yeah.
them, it's the most important thing in their world. And what they don't want is a computer that's just going to make it happen. They want a person that they can speak to about their really big issue that is keeping them up at night, worrying them, silly and all the rest of it. And I think that will never change.
And
So
I
I
and
don't
I
know your
think you're
thoughts.
right, because I think, we all talk about AI coming in and taking people's jobs and doing all the things it's doing, but in everything that I do and the people that I connect with and the training that I do, I'm finding more and more that the human element is required through all of those things. And as you said, Clara, when you think about when you think about the issues that people are facing, not just in family law, but I would say that that's one of the biggest ones where the human touch is absolutely required. But across all sorts of law, you could be buying a property and there's an absolute need for somebody to have somebody who is going to understand them, be polite, be professional, and all those sorts of things. So I think yes, there's still this ability for lawyers to never ever not have a role to play
Mm,
in everything
mm.
that we do. So
Absolutely. I think AI can do lots of wonderful things. I think it can really help and it can really speed things up, make things more slick and all the rest of it. And I think, again, processes, like we said about sort of the strategic overview of the firm, if you're looking at processes and thinking, wow, there's a better way to do this, that's going to happen more and more. And there will be much more efficient ways to do things. So yeah, I think it's all important, but
yeah. So one of the things that following on similar to the quote that was at your end, Clara, but what do people say about you when you're not in the room? I think it was a Jeff Bezos quote. Um, I've always loved this quote because I think it's very relevant.
mm,
You could be somebody who is starting maybe to be visible, or you've been working on a client file as just a lawyer and you're looking for your next step up. And your boss happens to bump into the client that you've been working with. That client has wonderful things to say about you. You are going to be forefront of that boss's mind when it comes to, oh, who do I need to look at for, potential promotions? Who's going to be somebody I'm watching out
mm,
for?
mm,
Equally, if you're not being very visible and you're behind the scenes and you're doing a reasonable job, but you're not sort of reaching out to the client a lot more and doing all those sorts of things, equally the boss might go and talk to the same client and the client has something different to say, not completely negative, but it would give a sense to the boss that you're not the right person to be thinking about for
mm,
any
mm,
potential future promotions. Um, and so it happens all around. People hear different things, and so whenever you're thinking about your brand and what someone is seeing and hearing about you, remember the most that they'll say about you is when you're not in the room.
mm,
So your brand needs to be present around you in everything you do. So if you want to get to that next level, you need to be visible, showing people you're stepping out of your comfort zone, you're asking for different things, you're speaking to the client and saying, I've been helping you with this. Is there something else that maybe is around the corner that you might like me to start understanding so I can start helping you prepare
mm,
for it? Just being a lot more visible and open about, yes, I'd really like this. Don't
mm,
sit back, because that equally will go against you when people are finding you outside of the room.
mm. No, definitely, definitely. And I think that's, yeah, like as well, you just simply never know who knows who as well. There's there's those diagrams, isn't there, of like 10 people and then the relationships that they actually all have, and there's hundreds of relationships in those 10 people and that sort of thing,
Yeah. I
so
think
much of
I
that
I
goes
think
on
I
in the
told
world.
you, Clara, when there was a person who came through in a place I worked. In fact, it was a law firm. And they went to the desk, completely ignoring anything about the receptionist, weren't very
Mm,
nice to them. And what they didn't realize was that the receptionist was very highly connected to one of the C-level directors, was like the management of the
yeah,
law
yeah.
firm. And of course, it just went against this person
mm,
because
mm,
they'd completely ignored who they shouldn't have ignored.
mm, mm.
But yeah, it just goes to show you just don't know what's happening outside of your remit.
Exactly. Exactly that. So readiness and action. This is what we're looking for. So people know what they're doing. As we've said all along, yes, it's not about capability. It's about perception in many ways. You could, like I say, everyone at a certain level is a technically strong lawyer. You don't get to where you get to without that. So everybody's sort of capable, potentially of going further and whatever, but it is, are you perceived as the right person to go first?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we can both talk about these really, but again, that commerciality piece, understanding the simple sort of profit and loss. What does it look like? What does it mean? How do the numbers stack up?
And you
Um,
have to show an interest in that. There's no point in
mm,
thinking that, moving up to say partnership level, oh, I don't need to understand what a profit and loss is. You do. You need to try and understand what all of the figures are and why not just, billing clients is important, but also making sure the clients are paying is also
yeah,
important. So you need to have that understanding of why that's important.
absolutely. I have had people go to interview for partner roles and they've asked exactly that question beforehand. What are your targets? What are you billing? And what were you actually getting paid? What was your actual, attainment rate of that billing? Because without it, you're just throwing out invoices, but not actually understanding that the money needs to come back in. And it's that classic thing. It's that I always think the smaller law firms can be guilty of this, where they have a good client who is someone they do lots of work for, but actually it's like getting blood out of a stone to get their bills paid. And it's like, is this a good client? How much debt actually have they built up with the firm? And in truth, they're a big client because they always want you to do something, but if they're never paying you, then they're probably not a good client.
No.
So it's understanding that the two don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess the talent development, this is what we were talking about when we were running through this, weren't we, Clara? We came at it from a
mm,
slightly different angle.
mm,
Um, so, I think I mentioned earlier about the mentoring. I think if you really see somebody or think about somebody higher up than you and you think, oh, I really think I'd like to understand why they're there and how they can potentially support me or guide me a little bit and that sort of thing, then don't be afraid to go and talk to people. People higher up are quite happy to mentor.
mm,
Um,
mm,
but it's about stepping into a realm where I don't know, let's say there is no roadmap, and
mm,
this feeds into you a little bit, Clara, because if there's no real roadmap and you go into somewhere and, maybe it's a smaller firm or even in a larger firm and people think, oh, you know what, I really want that next step up. I know
mm,
this is for me. Then maybe that sort of talent development doesn't necessarily come from within the company that you're currently in. Maybe
mm,
it means that you need to go to find someone like
mm,
you who's going
mm,
to help guide and find the right, you know, new development for you, the new
mm,
steps for you.
mm. Absolutely. And I always say to people, people will come to me saying, this hasn't been achieved in my current role, whether it's progress, whether it's salary, whether it's anything. And the first thing I say is, have you asked for it? Have
Yeah.
you sat down with your line manager or your boss or whatever the structure is or your reviews and made it very clear what you want? Because if you haven't done that, then no one is a mind reader. So do they even know? You may think you've made it clear, but have you made it clear? Have you actually said it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. You've got to think about these things. And then if you have, and if you've asked on a number of occasions and promises have been made and they haven't been fulfilled, then that's a very different situation. But if you've never actually voiced what it is that you're looking for, then it is a different situation because you may simply ask and you may get, but until you do, you just don't know. So I think, yeah, you do have to do that. And I think as well, we're talking about, thinking about the people coming up underneath you as well and making sure that you're growing your team kind of thing. I think that the danger often in law firms is that sort of potential tendency to hold on to the work, hold on to everything so that your billings look good. But actually, from the firm's point of view, they want to see that you're bringing other people into your fold, that work, as I say, that's maybe you are really busy and that work's bubbling over, brilliant, get someone in, fill their diary as well,
Yeah.
and then show people, tell people that you've done that. Like you say, then that's the confidence piece, be confident to tell people that that's what you've done, and be proud of what you've done, sort of thing, rather than doing it quietly and, oh, nobody noticed again,
Yeah.
because you didn't tell anyone about it. So it's all tied up.
Yeah.
um
So, because I think when you think about it, um, when you're in a situation, confidence doesn't feel like it's something you can immediately jump into. But if
mm-mm,
you want something, sometimes you have to ask for help. And it might not be the law firm that you're currently in that's going to offer you that help. Smaller
mm,
law firms don't necessarily have it. Larger law firms are so focused on other things that sometimes their focus
mm,
is not so much about, here's the skill sets you need to um, work on difficult conversations or leadership or have emotional intelligence or any of those sort of really important soft skills. And I guess that's what I see sometimes, is that people come and they kind of go, okay, I want to be a leader. I don't know how to be a leader. And
mm-mm,
that is something you start realizing is important to enable you to kind of, I don't know, maybe you won't skip a section, but you need to move into a leadership role.
mm,
And you need to be able to develop yourself in that way. And you also, as you said, also develop your team, because they also are going to come with you on a
mm.
journey. So you need to be thinking about what that next generation is going to look like, not just your own.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. No, and then say industry profile, like we said, there's sort of the business development piece, which is to clients, but then there's that sort of personal brand piece, which is sort of to everyone out there in the market. And again, that's again coming back to things like the niching, so that you're the go-to in the market, so that people know who you are and what you do, and why people come to you. And the more you shout about that in the market, the more traction you get and the more exposure you get and all the rest of it. And as we said, everybody knows everyone. So you may be talking to a, financial advisor about something, but then they know someone that needs something else. And, oh, I know
yeah,
exactly the person because it's all in the niche and all this. And so, it goes round, doesn't it? And that's
yeah.
that's what being that out there profile in the market. That's why that's so important, as well as the internal sort of piece of putting your hand up for things. So yeah, fab. So
So yeah, do you want to?
Well, all the champion of the partner in the room. Who is my champion in the partner room? I just think that is a really good piece to self-reflect on, because I do know people where they have said they're in a team and they know that the partner is maybe in the doer category, shall we say, and they are the partner, but they're sort of not really leading the team, which means as you go down the line, it means that the senior associate or the associate in the team also isn't getting shouted about in the partner room, because they're not really the shouting about anything kind of a person. They're the doing things quietly in the background person. So if you haven't got that champion in the partner room, it's very hard to get anywhere, and that can be almost it's there's various forms of sort of ceilings in firms. One of them can be blocked by simply too many partners in your department already, and there's no space for you to go up. But another one could be that, where the partner or the leader that you have got isn't actually uh, trained essentially in being a good leader and a good manager. So they're not doing their job in a rounded way, which means they can't be helping you, pulling you up in the way that you want to be. So again, it can be a factor in terms of looking around. Is this the situation that I want to be in? Is there a better situation somewhere else that I could put myself into?
Yeah. And I think, the business development plan, like solving a firm-wide problem, goes back to something you said earlier, where, be a bit strategic, look around at what's happening around you. Don't be afraid to sort of step into a role or situation where you think, okay, I've been doing this for, 6 months. I know I can make this process leaner. So what can I do to
Mm-mm.
do that? What does that give me in terms of, my role in law? Does it help me and my team move forward and maybe find it easier to bring clients in, or does it make it more efficient for us to work in something? So when you look at everything that's happening in a law firm, it isn't just about the box that you work in. It's about expanding and looking a bit further around at what's going on around you. Network, find out what people are doing, understand the bigger picture from many different angles, not just the one that you sit in and look at day to day, because it doesn't get you out there to see how you could move into a different area and start sort of reflect on, my skill sets would give me this. Maybe I can offer that to a different department. Maybe one of the things you love to do in your earlier days of law was different to what you're doing now, and you think, I'd like to kind of take some of what I know and help a different department. So some people say niche. I mean, niching is good, but I mean, in terms of
you mean silos.
Yeah,
Silos is what they say,
silos
isn't
the
it,
word
when
I mean.
firms exist in silos.
Yeah, so don't sort of sit in that one thing. Get out and explore, because your business plan is going to be okay if you do that. If you sit there in your little silo and you think that that's all just going to be everything you need to know, you're probably going to miss out on new client work. You might miss out on other things because you're just focusing in on just this small siloed area. You're not thinking about niching. You're just staying in your one corporate lane, or you're staying in your conveyancing lane, or you're staying in your family lane, and you're not necessarily moving out of it. So
definitely. And then, yes, am I a leader or an expensive associate? And that's the thing. I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were saying they know someone who has done exactly this. They've got themselves so senior as a senior associate, but there is nowhere that they can get into the partnership, but they are chocker in terms of work. They've got an absolute coal face of work, and they just chip away at it, and they just do the next file, the next file, the next file. And now that's all anyone wants them to do. And there is no promotion prospects, because they've got themselves so far down that path. And there's such a churning machine in the department, sort of thing, that's what they do, and that's what they're relied on for, and that's what they're needed for. But there is no scope, because they never looked up and thought, actually, there's all those partners above me, there's nowhere for me to go here. I can work as hard as I want, but I'm never gonna move up, because there simply isn't scope to do that. And now they're really quite senior in terms of their careers, so now to move sideways, they're too expensive, and all this kind of thing. So you can become it can become harder for you to move on and for you to develop, because you're not ticking boxes for other people. And the classic thing that I see as well is where people are at that level in terms of seniority that they should be a partner as the next level, but because of the setup of the firm, they actually have almost no real client relationships. So they are just still overspill for the partners. The partners hold all the relationships, all the cards, as it were. They're paid so much that another firm will go, oh yeah, they're good. What do they bring with them? And the
no,
answer
don't.
is, technically they're a really strong lawyer.
Yes.
But they don't really have the connections. They don't really have the clients of their own. They don't have anything to bring. And again, if they'd developed a niche, and that people knew them for that niche, or if they'd started, talking to people earlier on in their career, building a network, building contacts, asking to go to the client meetings, maybe, to build a
Yeah.
relationship of their own, then they would find themselves in a stronger position. So I think, it is about thinking about the future and the now as well, making sure you're where you want to be. And equally, if you want to be that highly technical lawyer in 100% technical role, churning through the work, and that's actually your happy
Yeah.
space, then brilliant, that's fine too. But like you say, if you're watching
Yeah.
a video on promotion, you're probably wanting a promotion. So it's probably not this audience, but yeah, fab. So this was kind of your framework, Hazel. So talk
Yeah,
us
I
through
think
this.
this is kind of, we've covered a lot of it, I think. But, when you start, you need to think it's almost like when you start something, you start at the end, and then you come back to the beginning. So what's the impact you want to make? So what's that you want to be a partner, you want to be a senior associate, what's the impact that you need to start making that happen, and then come back to the beginning and start making it happen. So you need to start at the end, or with
Yeah,
the end
yeah,
in mind, and come back to going, how am I going to do that?
yeah.
And you're going to stop the invisible overworking. So you're going to stop being invisible. You've got to start thinking differently about, I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone slightly. I'm going to start being more visible. And it might be gradual. I'm not telling anyone to go from here to there because it's
Mm-mm.
not going to work either. So it's like, take my visibility from here until I start to see that I can do it. Take yourself out of your comfort zone slowly, slowly. And don't overwork, just make yourself more visible and make yourself that ability to show that you're a very competent lawyer in what you do and really highly skilled, but you also have other skills. And these are the other skills I have. These are the things I want to build on. So stop being invisible, start being invisible, and then continue that technical ability, because you have to. I mean, there's no way in the world you can get to partner level and go, oh, I don't need that anymore. So you need to continue that knowledge. You still need to continue learning and knowledge and have all that sort of thing you need to have behind you, but with the impact in mind. So everything is with that end goal, that end kind of bit. So always think everything about what you're about to do is, what is it that I'm about to achieve? What do I want to achieve? And then start working out your steps to get there.
Fabulous, fabulous. So yeah, pretty much as we started from, promotion isn't just earned, it's recognized. And I think that's the thing. That's what we're saying. You've got to be there, you've got to be recognized. If you sit there waiting for it to come to you, it probably won't.
Yeah.
And if it does, it will probably get there a lot slower than if you go out there and start making it happen. So yes, like I say, we come at this from sort of different angles. So Hazel can help you with all your sort of coaching, all the training needs, all around leadership management, the skills, and I think, you know better than anyone that these skills aren't things that we're born with. You always get, oh, they're a born leader or they're born to do business
Yeah. No.
development or whatever. I mean, some people are maybe, but it's just by chance. But everyone can be trained to do these things. They are skills, they can be developed, they can be, honed, and everything's scary at first. We were all scared of the law at one point, and
Yes.
then we learnt the law, and then we were confident in it. So that's what you offer.
Yeah.
And then yeah, like I say, I do the recruitment side,
Oh,
which is
you
more.
don't just do the recruit. She's a very, very good recruiter. She looks after clients really, really well. And everybody who works with her, has amazing things to say. And you offer a wide range of things as well. So, and people who are feeling less than confident in maybe where they sit right now, or they're one of those people that they've kind of reached the plateau of where they are, then you have that capability to sit down with someone and help them understand where they need to be. So,
I
you
think
know,
that's the thing. I do help people take a step back, think, where am I? Look up from the parapet really, and actually take stock of what is around me and what am I looking for and why am I looking for it and will I ever find it here or do I need to look elsewhere? And like I say, often my first question is go to your own HR. Have you been to your HR department and said XYZ? Because I'm not just going to go, right, we'll find you another role. If all it
yeah,
is you need to sit down and say, actually, I think my salary is insufficient based on this, this, and this that I've been performing on. And if you haven't
yeah,
had that conversation, go and have that conversation first, because there's no point getting another role. That's not what your problem is. Your problem is that you haven't had that conversation.
yes.
So yes, but no, lovely to talk this through with you, Hazel, anyway. And thank you to people that attended on the day, and thank you to people that are watching us on YouTube after the event. It's been great.
It has. Thanks, Clara, for combining our wonderful what skill sets and our knowledge.
Absolutely.
So
Happy to do
fantastic.
it. And thanks for the chat. We'll leave you to get on with the rest of your very busy day, Hazel.
Okay, you too, Clara.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.